Right now, we're on the cusp of seeing some substantial change.
Tonight, more coverage on red dress events held across Canada.
It was really graphic. Hey, I never witnessed a crime like that in my life.
Plus, a brutal crime in the middle of the day leaves 2 dead.
This is not a step that we took lightly.
And wildfires rage across Alberta and Saskatchewan. Good evening, Tansei Anin. Welcome to APTN National News. I'm Daryl Stranger. RCMP have issued a dangerous person alert for Sunchild and Ochese First Nations in Alberta. The alert went out on the Alberta's emergency warning system this afternoon at 1:17 Mountain Time, stating there are 4 armed and dangerous persons in the area of the First Nations, about 140 kilometers northwest of Red Deer. 2 of the suspects have been identified as 28-year-old Colin Beaverbones and 25-year-old Boyd Beaverbones. Residents are advised to not approach and immediately shelter in place. A mother and daughter are dead after a Friday evening stabbing in front of a southeastern Edmonton school. Chris Stewart brings us this story and a warning. This story has material that may be upsetting.
The vicious stabbing in front of the Crawford Plains School has devastated the Robillard family. Just before 5 p.m. on Friday evening, a man with a knife stabbed 35-year-old Carol Ann Robillard and her 11-year-old daughter, Sarah, who went by the name of Jaden. The attacker fled on foot. Carol Ann died at the scene, while Sarah died in the hospital. Edmonton police found the suspect shortly after, and 2 officers shot him. He's in critical condition in the hospital. 13-year-old Max Dow says he saw a strange-looking man approach and attack the mother and daughter. He says it was traumatizing to watch.
It was really graphic. Hey, I never witnessed a crime like that in my life.
Neighbors heard the shots from police.
Hear this pop, 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 and both of us just kind of hit the deck and didn't really know what was going on.
I saw the gun, didn't even really register. I just ran and grabbed my daughter and took her to the back of the house and got my wife to come to the back, and we just got low because we didn't really know what was going on.
I'm just getting worked up talking about it. I can still feel it in my chest. It's pretty traumatizing.
On Saturday, family, friends, and well-wishers held a candlelight vigil. Donna Robillard is Carol Ann's mother and Sarah's grandmother. She says her 8-year-old granddaughter managed to escape the attacker.
Why my granddaughter? Why? You know, I wish I was there. And my other granddaughter is going to have a hard time. She needs a lot of counseling and all that because she's seen it all. And she made it through. And she's only 8 years old. And she's really hurting.
A GoFundMe has been set up to help with funeral costs and expenses. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
At a press conference today, Edmonton Police Chief Dale McPhee said that the person in custody has a violent history, including multiple charges of assault with weapon and robbery. Last month, he allegedly assaulted someone with a scooter, but those charges were stayed. Well, it is Emergency Preparedness Week in Saskatchewan from May 7th until May 13th, To date, the province has had more than 80 wildfires already, and 14 of them are still burning. 4 First Nations are affected: Clearwater Dene Nation, Buffalo River Dene Nation, Soto First Nation, and Moosomin First Nation. Residents from La Loche and Clearwater were evacuated last week, but as of yesterday, they were told it's safe to return home. People who left on their own are encouraged to now return back to the communities of Clearwater Dene Nation and La Loche. As a result of the fires, the majority of the province is under a total fire ban. And the state of emergency is in effect in Alberta as wildfires continue to spread across the province at an alarming rate.
This is not a step that we took lightly, but it's one that will allow the quickest and most effective response.
The emergency declaration will help the province access emergency funds and mobilize more resources. Firefighters from Ontario and Quebec also arrived in Alberta yesterday, and the federal government is ready to help if needed. There are currently 109 wildfires burning in Alberta. About a third are considered out of control. The number of evacuees has grown to over 24,000 people. About 15 Indigenous and First Nations communities have been impacted by the wildfires in Alberta. Indigenous Services Minister Patty Haidu says the federal government has been helping them coordinate evacuations.
There hasn't been any loss of life. There's been just astronomical infrastructure and other losses, and reiterated our commitment as the Government of Canada to continue to work with the province of Alberta as well in both the immediate and the long term. Right now, the focus is, as I said, on evacuation, on the safety of the evacuees, and getting as much fire prevention effort in place, like cut lines and barriers where possible, so that we can protect what remaining infrastructure does exist.
An Indigenous-owned technology, a first of its kind in Canada, is said to be tackling climate change adaptation with a product launch. Barry and Noah Stevens will be presenting 3D wave design at the Lands, Environment and Economic Capacity Summit tonight.
It gets the whole community to understand, so we can be proactive rather than reactive. So it's great because it basically takes the science and democratizes it. It allows everybody to understand the risk.
The technology is an interactive app that produces a 3D climate change modeling map identifying the probability of potential floods, wildfires, storm surges, and coastal erosion. Stevens says so far the technology has been used by some Indigenous communities in Nova Scotia. All right, we have to step aside for a moment. More news still to come. Welcome back to APTN National News. In Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, about 100 people gathered for a walk on Friday, Red Dress Day. The Nova Scotia Native Women's Association held the event, and they're calling for more action to prevent Indigenous women and girls from being murdered or going missing. Angel Moore reports.
We need our government, our local government, to step up.
Karina Matthews addressed about 100 people at the Wentworth Park Bandshell in Sydney, Unama'ki, Mi'kmaq for Cape Breton. They gathered for the MMIWG 2S walk in memory of loved ones. The Nova Scotia Native Women's Association sponsored the day. Matthews says change will happen at the grassroots level.
So if they can look at the recommendations as a city, as a street, as a community, as a school, to pick up something and teach the little ones and keep teaching them good, because we're all the same.
Jennifer Donovan, 37 years old, a mother of 3, was murdered October 8, 2019 in Peace River, Alberta. Ray Donovan is Jennifer's father, and he is frustrated with the justice system.
Just recently, we went to Alberta for her trial, and even with DNA evidence, they're saying this man was not guilty. And with that being said, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police from Alberta called me and said that there is no one else they're looking for.
After the speeches, the walk began. Sheena Johnson is doing this for her cousin, Cheryl Johnson. Cheryl's body was found May 2001 on the boardwalk at Sydney Harbour. Police investigated for 2 days and determined Cheryl's death was accidental and no foul play was suspected. But the family is not convinced.
When my cousin was found on the boardwalk downtown Sydney, I was 16. Her shirt and her bra was over her shirt. There was no water in her lungs. Her case is still in question.
The walk concluded with a feast at the NSNWA's Jane Paul Indigenous Women's Resource Centre. Matthews told the crowd more needs to be done.
We need to protect our women and children at all costs, because everything is against us. Everything's against us.
Meanwhile, every Red Dress Day, red dresses hang at the park, and walks continue to support each other and raise awareness.
So today means a lot to me for her and the other family members that I had that passed over the years.
Angel Moore, APTN National News, Sydney, Nova Scotia.
Well, it was a somber red dress walk in Winnipeg on Friday night as an alleged serial killer faces charges for the murders of 4 Indigenous women. APTN Sav Jones met with one of the event's organizers.
I'm on Treaty 1 territory at the Forks for the 3rd annual Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit Walk for Justice. With me here is Travis Barcy, co-organizer for the event. Thanks for meeting with me today.
Well, thank you for coming today and participating in this. It's very important.
Absolutely. I was wondering if you could maybe tell us a bit about what this event means for the people who are affected by MMIW G2S.
That's a great question. So when we come together as community and we're able to stand up and have our voices heard, it's one of the most healing practices that we can do as a community. And so when we come together and we spend time together, we feast together, and we are able to remember the ones that have been lost, stolen, or taken, or murdered. This is an important part of that healing process, and for all of us to be able to raise awareness on what the issues actually are.
Absolutely. You know, with everything that's happened in the past 12 months with remains found across the city and calls for an extensive landfill search, how do you think things might be a bit different this year?
Well, I mean, the reality is we are making more noise. We are stepping up, and there's there's petitions that are being put out there. There's people going to Ottawa. Cambria Harris going to Ottawa. Calls for a crisis emergency for MMIW G2S. So right now we're on the cusp of seeing some substantial change, and we're going to continue to have our voices heard. We're going to continue to speak loudly, and we're going to continue to demand that the 231 calls for justice is fully implemented.
And what do you hope people take away from this event?
I would say, a better understanding of what this, what the MMIW G2S Plus and MMIM B2S Plus is really about. We are going to have allies here, and it is extremely important that we are encouraging everybody to make this a topic of conversation around the dinner table. As difficult as it is, it's important that we are talking about it.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for talking with me, and good luck with this event, and thanks for putting it on.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Miigwech.
Awesome. Thank you.
Take care.
And we will have more on this event and how it felt for those affected by MMIWG2S tomorrow. Well, advocates and families rallied on Friday along the Highway of Tears in Terrace, British Columbia. They remembered their lost loved ones on a rainy Red Dress Day. APTN's Lee Wilson reports.
MMIWG advocates, families and supporters marched on the section of Highway 16 in northern BC known as the Highway of Tears. They commemorated lost loved ones with drumming and songs. Tears to Hope Society organized the event. This group provides support to families with murdered and missing relatives. Gladys Raddick, a longtime advocate, shared the number of families impacted.
Our organization, Tears to Hope Society, has 42 names and pictures of missing and murdered loved ones, just from Prince George to Prince Rupert.
Posters of Colton Fleury, Francis Brown, and Cindy Martin, who all went missing between 2017 and 2018, are among the many posters along the walk. Wet'suwet'en member Delina Call spoke of multiple murdered and missing cousins and friends who went missing on the Highway of Tears. She shared their family's struggle with the RCMP response in 1990 when her cousin, 15-year-old Delphine Nicole, went missing near Smithers.
Basically, they made it sound like she was the one that was making this up. And so there was no real search effort. They told other people in the community that she had just run away. She must have just run away, so what's the point in going to look?
Nicole stated the response was similar when her friend Ramona Wilson went missing near Smithers in 1994. Her body was found near the Smithers airport the next year. Nicole called for the MMIWG National Inquiry 231 calls to justice to be put into action.
But that they're actually truly fulfilled. And there are this many people here to spread the message and make that ripple out so that families are supported. Not a poster on some business window, not a hashtag on some corporate website, but that families are supported.
Gladys Raddick has been an MIWG advocate dating back to 2005 when her niece Tamara Chipman went missing near Prince Rupert. She vowed to continue to fight for impacted families. She called for change and urged those in attendance to spread the word.
We want something done. We want to end violence against women. And if it takes a little crowd like this to go home and talk about it at your kitchen table, do it. Let's end this together.
Lee Wilson, APTN National News, Terrace.
And now to Vancouver, where APTN's Tina House was at the Red Dress event on Friday. She was just outside of City Hall where the event took place.
Here on Red Dress Day in Vancouver, we're gathered in the rain, and there's about a couple hundred people here wanting justice and demanding answers for the many cases of the murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls across this country. Joining me today is Carol Martin. Carol, you spent 35 years on the downtown east side working with many of the women. Can you tell me what your experience down there?
It's a sad, tiresome job.
And when you're working down there, you're in the moment kind of thing. You're just dealing with crisis after crisis after crisis. But I'll tell you one thing, after 35 years and taking a step back after 2 years, going on to almost 3, I started looking at things and looking at the foundation and looking at the organizations and looking what was happening with our women down there. And as you know, the police station was down there. And it's like, why are so many women going missing right out the front door of the police station or the organizations down there? Downtown, it's the bottom of the bucket where all the people end up coming, all women from all across Canada. And we're in crisis mode all the time, and women are being pushed off the streets, pushed out of safe spaces. It's like, where do they go?
The danger is high, absolutely. Carol, you must know many of the women that have gone missing over the years. Can you tell us a number? How many women do you know that have gone missing or were found murdered?
Oh my God, 35 years. The list is, you see the Memorial March list? That's how many women I knew over the years working with them. And for me to actually walk down there and then try not, it's hard. It's really, really hard because you see familiar faces that are now gone. You see women who you've helped. You took money out of your own pocket to get them out of town or on a bus or, through the downtown east side from drug dealers or, pimps. And where do the women go? Who can they go to? We just started marching and rallying. It started out small, and it's grown over the years to 32 years or something. But I get so angry too, the fact that Indigenous women, when nothing has changed for us, our women are still going missing. Well, what is happening? What needs to happen is we need to look at the foundation of this Canadian system and see where all that is coming from, because it's within the system. And it's affecting our lives even now, today, as we speak. Our women are still going missing. And a Native woman can be found on a highway with no clothes on. It's not suspicious. But if it was a non-Native person, that's considered high priority. And we have to stop the stigma, the labels. Canada has to really look at how they portrayed our image as Indigenous women. It's affecting us now. We need to mobilize together. We need to build, we have to educate the public and how can you be best allies? How can we be allies with ourselves? How can we treat ourselves good so that we're able to treat other people good?
We really appreciate all you've done for all the women on the downtown east side. I know it's taken a tremendous toll on you and your family, and we just really respect and appreciate all the work that you put in, and prayers to those families that are still looking for answers. Thank you, Carol, for joining us today.
We need answers.
Absolutely.
We need answers.
Thank you very much. Back to you in studio.
All right, it's that time to pause our program one more time. A photo of the day and weather are next. Welcome back. It's time now for our photo of the day. Our very own Mark Blackburn sent in this great photo showing the red tulips in full display for the annual Tulip Festival in Ottawa. Now, these tulips are donated by the Netherlands to thank Canada for their help liberating the country during the Second World War. You can send your photos to share@aptn.ca for the chance to be featured as our next photo of the day. All right, now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Beginning on the east coast, 7 in St. John's and 11 in Halifax. 1 degree in Cartwright and 4 in Coujawak. Clear and 15 in Quebec City and clear and 17 in Montreal. 19 degrees in sun in Toronto and 15 in sun in North Bay. 18 and clear in Wawa and 22 and clear in Big Trout Lake. 17 degrees in Churchill and 13 in Norway House. Rain and 16 in Barons River and rain and 20 in Winnipeg. Regina's looking at rain and 21 and North Battleford rain and 22. 17 degrees in La Ronge and 23 in rain in Stony Rapids. As we make our way west at 23 in High Level and 22 in Peace River. 16 in rain in Edmonton and 16 in rain in Calgary. 17 degrees in Vancouver and 19 in Bella Coola. Clear and 20 in Smithers and 22 in Fort Nelson. 13 degrees in Whitehorse and 13 in Dawson. Clear and 15 in Norman Wells and clear and 17 in Yellowknife. 4 degrees in Fort McPherson and 3 in Colville Lake. 1 degree in Cambridge Bay and clear and 6 in Whale Cove. -5 in Arctic Bay and -1 in Iqaluit. Crowds gathered and the world looked on as the coronation of King Charles III took place in London on Saturday. Amid the pomp and circumstance, Charles was crowned at Westminster Abbey by the head of the Church of England. It was quite the affair, the first coronation of a British king or queen in 70 years, since that of his mother Elizabeth II in 1953. Heads of several Commonwealth countries were on hand, including Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. A large contingent of celebrities were also in the church where the 1,000-year-old coronation ceremony took place, and the commoners observed what they could from the streets and countryside. And thanks to APTN staffer Brendan Dong for that close-up footage of the new king in the golden carriage. All right, that's all we have for you tonight. For more information on any of our stories, aptnnews.ca has you covered. For everyone here, thank you so much for joining us. Miigwech, Kinanaskwitin. Have a great night.